Hello and welcome to this very exciting edition of the Immigrant magazine weekly. I'm Pamela Anchang. Have you heard about the kidnappings by extremists in Nigeria or the famous Chibok girls that made so much news around the world? Have you also ever pondered about what might have become of these girls' lives or the stories surrounding them? My show today may have some answers for you in this discussion with Director Desmond Ovbiagele and Executive Producer Dr. Seun Sowemimo about their Oscar-contending feature film, The Milkmaid, a story about two sisters abducted by armed insurgents and whatever happened to them. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, please click on the subscribe button here below and press the like button so that YouTube will share our videos. And please ring the notification bell so that you will be notified whenever we bring you such amazing and very important discussions. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Pam Anchang. Without further ado, please welcome Director Desmond Ovbiagele, an investment banker turned writer and filmmaker, and executive producer, Dr. Seun Sowemimo, a nationally recognized board-certified general and bariatric surgeon. Welcome to the show, guys. It's an honor to have you on the I Am Weekly. Hopefully our conversation will shed some light on some of the issues that you portray in the movie. But I really want to start first with Desmond, our director here. From investment banker to filmmaker, writer, how did you do that? What sparked your interest in movie making?
Well, I've always had an interest in movies as a consumer. In terms of movie making, probably at the very latter stages of my banking career, I began to get some stirrings that I wanted to be involved in that sector. And it primarily started with writing, with script writing, which I started to do, just in my free time, in my downtime, whilst I was still in banking. But once I stepped out and, made it a full-time occupation, then, the natural step was after you finish writing the script, to begin to put the resources together to realize that script into a full-fledged production. So that made me step, beyond just writing into the area of producing and subsequently directing.
That's amazing. I mean, I watched The Milkmaid, your feature. It felt like a discussion, and I was really happy that I got a chance to see it. What motivated you to do this film?
Well, being a Nigerian and having been the recipient of a torrent of daily reports about latest casualty figures from the insurgency situation in the northern part of the country, I felt that it was important for me as a filmmaker. If I consider myself a filmmaker of any significance, that we had a responsibility, particularly with the tools that we have at our disposal and the access that we have, through the medium of film, to lend our voices to what was going on up there, and also to constitute a voice for those who couldn't really speak for themselves, whose voices were not heard in the public space. I mean, you heard the voices of, the government people, you heard the voices of the extremists via all those videos they kept posting for people to consume. But in terms of the people most affected, they were unable to speak for themselves. And, I felt that, I had an opportunity as a filmmaker to, at least in some way, put, some backstory, some personalities behind just the statistics that you regularly hear about in the news. And the story really came about from that source.
That's amazing. When you watch the movie, like I said, it's kind of like having a discussion. You interweave so many elements. So sometimes I'm kind of like, are we talking about gender violence with the women, or are we talking about um, the insurgency and the extremism and religion and all of the above? What are you hoping to accomplish? What do you want the takeaway to be?
Well, for me, I like people to hopefully have better insight into who these people are on both sides of the divide, be it as perpetrators, extremists, or as the victims. So we did try as much as possible to try and immerse the viewer into the lives of these people, where they live, how they dress, how they speak, what they eat, how they think, and how they interact among each other. And hopefully, if that understanding is gained, perhaps we can begin to find a lasting solution to this crisis that's been raging on for entering the second decade. Now, without any lasting solution having been found to it. So hopefully, people can come away with the sense that no one is born an insurgent. They started out as good guys. Somewhere along the line, they were captured, abducted, brainwashed, indoctrinated, and they became who they are. And but yes, despite all that, they still remain human beings, and they still remain accessible to positive influences if those influences can be brought, home to them. So, it's a fluid situation, and I think there's so much going on in the world right now that their voices and their experiences tend to get lost. And hopefully, this film can remind people of what they go through and where they are right now and what can be done for them.
You certainly did a good job doing that. Let me bring in Dr. Seun into the conversation. Doc, bariatric surgeon, what interested you in participating in this film as executive producer? Why the interest?
Yeah, thank you, Pamela. Um, as you may have read, I have a lifelong interest in the arts. I've always been, an artist, even from high school days where myself and Desmond were together, in Lagos. It's artistic things have always been part of my being. And, just growing up, yes, I went down the medical line. My dad himself is a surgeon, and I pursued that, but I've always sought artistic outlets. And I think in talking to Desmond about this project and seeing where I could vent some of my, love for art, and at the same time contribute something significant to humanity in terms of giving a voice to these people who are voiceless. I mean, never mind the fact that we don't have much of a platform or much of a voice ourselves, but it's important to try to use whatever we have to give a voice to these people who are voiceless and whose lives are being decimated by insurgency. So combination of those two things for me just made me think that this might be the thing that was larger than self, that one could anchor uh, oneself to.
Mhm. So the film centers a lot around, well, it's around the extremism that takes place in Nigeria, and typically the religious aspect. So I'm kind of wondering if there's a cultural and religious infusion there, because is it really, are we condemning Islam as a religion? I want you to clear that out, Dr. Seun.
Yeah. So the way I see it, I don't really see a big part uh, uh, in terms of religion in this movie, because the insurgents are not under the control of any mainstream religion. They don't ask for permission to do what they're doing, and they can't be restrained by any member, or they're not known to be restrained by any member of any mainstream religion. So I think in some ways it's actually unfair to sort of have religion sort of be seen as being responsible for these people's acts. They're not, the advocates of any religion. In fact, they misuse religion in doing the vile acts that they commit. So I don't see it as such. And for me, it's always strange when people try to draw parallels or somehow, you know, want to include the mainstream religion in the conversation when we're talking about these insurgents.
But we can't help but do that sometimes, Doc, especially when Sharia comes into play. That's against the background of Sharia law. It's against the background of religion. You know, I think maybe what we're trying to clear is the extremism or, which
Yes.
exists in most religions or cultures. I hope that I'm saying it correctly. But I really wanted to understand. Let me get back to Director Ovbiagele. Desmond, how did you come about the idea of the Milkmaid? What's the background of the film? I know it's a fictionalized idea that we're bringing to life that mimics reality. How did you come up with that, and why the Milkmaid?
Well, basically, I mean, I started out from effectively ground zero, not knowing exactly what the story was going to be, but wanted it to emerge organically out of the extensive research that I committed myself to, and research because I live in the southern part of the country. I don't live in the north. I'm not a Muslim either, so I certainly needed a lot of help to be able to understand, the characters in the story that I wanted to tell. So I immersed myself in research. I read numerous accounts from survivors of insurgency, their experiences, what they went through, how they were attacked, where they were taken to, who their abductors were, what they were like, and all those sort of things. And the sense was, out of all that volume of research, to now find and craft a narrative that would be authentic. I mean, it couldn't be a catch-all narrative. You couldn't absolutely capture every single element of the victim's experience, but you could at least have a slice of, a sample of what victims go through. So that was the idea behind the research. And, what came out of the research was particularly the experiences of women, who had survived the attacks, in many cases managed to escape from captivity, back to society. I was not narrating what they went through. So it was a natural fit to anchor the story on women, basically, because their accounts were far more detailed and more comprehensive than that of the men, who in many cases, were not actually alive to tell their side of the story, because the modus operandi of insurgents is to kill the men and abduct the women, and marry them off as prizes or rewards, to their fighters. So I anchored it. I knew that it was going to be anchored on women and their experiences and their angle of the story. And parallel to that, I sort of caught on the idea of using the iconic figures at the back of the Nigerian 10 naira note, namely two Fulani milkmaids.
Okay.
And the idea came that, okay, what would happen if these two young women were caught up in the insurgency situation? Because, I mean, their natural habitat in the country is in the north. So it was fairly realistic that they could be caught up, under an insurgency attack. What would their lives be like? How would they adjust or not adjust to the new way of life that will be imposed on them? So that was the takeoff point really for the story.
That's a very interesting point, because, with the Chibok girl situation, I think that must have been the first time that most of us were aware of girls getting kidnapped. And it had been going on, I think, and it continues. And most of the time, after a while, it makes news, and that story made news. And then after a while, people just forgot about it. So when I was watching the film, it occurred to me, is this a possibility of the fate that these girls that were kidnapped suffered? And I tell you, it brought me chills. I was scared because I went to boarding school, in Cameroon. So to see that scared the living daylights out of me, Dr. Seun. Do you think this is kind of like, yeah, what is the message here, especially for the world, about what is going on and what can be done?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. the beautiful thing about film is that it allows you to walk in the shoes of others and see their reality. So, I mean, the perception you come away with that this is real, it could happen to anybody, and those people to whom it happens, it's not of their choosing. They didn't do anything wrong to deserve this or anything like that. And that's the thing that is touching about this. And yes, it is an ongoing phenomenon. The fact that only when it sometimes makes the headlines, for instance, Chibok made global headlines. There have been others that are known to us, like in Nigeria, those who pay attention, the Dapchi girls that were abducted, and someone called Leah Sharibu, who made headlines in relation to that. And then after that, there's recently the Kankara boys, you know, which incident happened only a week after the Milkmaid was announced as Nigeria's representative to the Oscars. So, you know, this is an ongoing phenomenon. There's been even suicide bombings recently that have been reported in the news. So the message to the global community is for them to be aware. And that's what this movie is trying to do. If we bring awareness to the situation, you know, then it gets some attention. I remember that from Chibok girls, there was specifically some military and statistical or logistical aid that came from the US to Nigeria in terms of that situation and in an attempt to rescue the girls. So, you know, once the world is paying attention and they're aware and sensitized, there's leverage to be able to bring solution to the problem. There's leverage to be able to even just address the people who are in, you know, internally displaced person camps that may be, you know, suffering as a fallout of this situation. So it brings a lot of resources to the table.
Okay, that's very true. However, bringing these stories to light also sometimes stigmatizes us Africans. Desmond, I have to ask you this question. We're telling our stories. We always want to tell our stories. Now, if someone else had written the story or told the story, let's say Steven Spielberg had done this, you know, there'll be outrage saying, oh, that's all you say about Africa and all whatnot. But here you are telling the story. What makes it different?
Well, I think, you know, as a filmmaker, I like to strive for honesty in what, you know, I set, you know, myself to do. And to be fair, I mean, if we're only telling these kind of stories, particularly out of the Nigerian filmmaking industry, you know, then perhaps one will feel a little guilty that, you know, hey, can we show something else? But these stories are very much outliers in terms of the sort of content that we produce in Nigeria. I mean, how many films have really been made about insurgency? Most of the films are feel good, you know, comedies, you know, rom-coms, dramas, a little bit action, you know, but this is not the sort of story that people have gravitated towards. And, you know, some of that is for commercial reasons, feeling that, you know, people don't want to watch this kind of films. The environment is already too stressful. Why would you know, contribute towards that? So I totally get it that, you know, some people may feel, you know, why don't we show Africa in a nice, bubbly, you know, positive light and all that. But I think to some extent, whilst you can do that, there'll be people who will be very clearly aware of what's going on in Africa, of these sort of issues. And whilst they'd be happy to consume your bubbly content, they'll also be wondering, okay, that's fine, but you know, you should simultaneously also be talking about the other side. There has to be balance, you know. So you know, there may be some people who may choose to concentrate, you know, on, you know, the happier side of life, and I'd like to do that as well. But you know, I certainly consider this issue way too topical, way too important, you know, to be unduly influenced by, oh, Africans have come again with another tragedy and disaster, and we're just tired of seeing that. You know, I mean, if we take that approach, then, you know, those things don't get sorted out. They don't get the attention that they deserve. So until they get the attention they deserve, you know, I'm certainly going to keep on focusing on them.
Absolutely. Yep. Do you see it as a work of advocacy then, like you said? Is it a work of advocacy?
Well, I mean, it is it is a creative effort. So it's not a documentary. We do try to make it, well, not a pleasurable experience, educational certainly, but to some extent, you're able to come here and appreciate not just the message, but you're also appreciating some other things. You're appreciating the language, you're appreciating the culture, and we do make an effort to make the culture as authentic and as as eye-catching and pleasing as possible, which is what the culture is. So we didn't just want to make everything doom and gloom and everything. I think in the movie, hopefully, you come away with a sense of, this very, very rich culture that they come from, which gets disrupted, by the insurgency. So the idea was not just, just to paint an entirely black picture, but to show that dichotomy, between, the heritage of these people and how their lives, living, fairly simple, but, fairly rewarding and fulfilling lives, even in their part of the world, and how that gets, interrupted by acts of extremism.
So I must be honest with you, though, Desmond. I must be honest. Towards the end of the movie, right? I almost felt like the tragic situation was romanticized a little bit. I don't know if I would have loved to have seen a clear cut that, I'm not falling in love with an extremist, Well, that's for audiences to make their decisions. But that's, for me, I felt like some people didn't need to be punished. I didn't feel they were punished. Well, that's for the audience to decide. But I see your point in trying to make an uplifting story and the possibility of evolution. So that's very good. What were you thinking when you were going in that direction?
Well, I'm not sure that, well, in the first place, that she fell in love with the insurgent. The insurgent certainly fell in love with her.
Okay.
I don't think we certainly brought it out fully, that certainly not by any word or action on her part. It seemed more, just her trying to get him to see the light and to come away from his bad deeds.
Okay.
Still maybe a step away from, absolutely being head over heels in love with him. Probably, I mean, if we went that far, I would say, hey, that's maybe a bit too far. But certainly on his part, you could see, yes, there was the infatuation, there was that devotion emotionally on his part.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, that was something that not so much needing to romanticize the story. I mean, that's nice, but also came out of the research. One of the interesting things of the research was that, as I said, these people are human beings, and a number of them, I won't say all of them, but certainly a number of them from the accounts of survivors, a number of the insurgents did not necessarily want a master-servant relationship. They wanted a relationship which was based on, attraction. So they wanted to appeal to these victims. They wanted them to like them who they were, as opposed to, if you don't do this, I'm going to shoot you in the head or whatever it was. So
they wanted to eat their cake and have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was certainly an element that is not necessarily pervasive across all of them, but was something interesting that I saw, and I said, it'd be interesting to portray that, to some extent. Obviously, in the Milkmaid, it's only one person that does that. All the other people are much more black and white in terms of their interactions with their victims. But certainly, you have one character who is not like the rest of his comrades.
Okay. Well, you know what? Like you said, these are human beings. These are stories and these things do happen even in those scenarios. So that was really an honest portrayal. I think it was just the feminist in me was going, no.
But I think in the end, the insurgent did get punished in that.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yes, and I've had different reactions to that. Some people felt that, that was that he was coming around, and how come?
But that too. Let's not get away, Dr. Seun. Let's let the audience watch it and decide. So now let's talk about the fact that you submitted this film for the Oscars. I'm so excited. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Dr. Seun, let's talk about the Oscars. Okay, you submitted this film. I'm really excited about that. Possibly will be the first if Nigeria snags it, and I'm praying that you do, because this movie is a masterpiece that needs to be seen and it deserves a recognition. So what would that mean for the industry, for this movie to do well?
Yeah, thank you for the compliments and thank you for the question. I think, I mean, I can't speak for the industry. This is actually a first journey for me in this realm. But what I've found is that a lot of the industry, because of the kind of work that they've been putting out, has been sort of pigeonholed in a particular space. Like Desmond was alluding to, a lot of the content seems to fit into a particular genre. And then also the kind of financial bracket for the films coming out of Nigeria, out of Nollywood, also, is somehow fixed. So part of the issue that we've seen in our little journey here is that, some of those things can work against you. So we're hoping that with attainment of this sort of level of technical this sort of technical level in filmmaking and aspiring to such heights as being submitted for an Oscar, I think that would elevate the entire industry in Nigeria. It will give credence to the kind of bandwidth of movies that we can create, and I hope it would expand the possibilities in terms of the range of movies that are being expected, the kind of remunerations that can come from such movies and things like that in every aspect. Also, one thing that I'm happy that we did in this movie, apart from the insurgency and everything, was sort of show some of the beautiful landscapes that we have in Nigeria. And some of these places could be very choice locations for future films internationally. So bringing some of that home to Nigeria would also be a big thing in terms of attracting foreign exchange, and giving us prominence as locations for movie making. So there's so much that can be gained by Nigerian film industry as a whole from the efforts that are being made by the Milkmaid. So I think the further we go at the Oscars, the more that these possibilities are going to be able to be realized. So it's something that I'm really proud of and looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys do an amazing job. Desmond, you do such an amazing job juxtaposing such a heart-wrenching story against such a beautiful landscape, the waters, the hills, the valleys, the forest. It just transported me over there. So I'm really hoping that this movie, when everyone sees it, that directors, filmmakers, the industries here will look into Nigeria as a possibility for location and doing more work out there. What do you think?
I certainly hope so. It's certainly, for me personally, an eye-opener. These were not locations I had ever been to in my life, even though I'm essentially resident in Nigeria for most of my life. But we actually were meant to shoot the film in a different location in the country. And I stumbled across just one or two pictures from Taraba State, and someone said, that was Nigeria. And I said, that can't be Nigeria. I don't know of anywhere in Nigeria. So, I actually literally went out there with my production designer, and we spent a week just walking up and down the length and breadth of the state and seeing these locations for ourselves. And by the time we concluded that 7-day trip, we were absolutely convinced that we had to shoot the film there. It wasn't the most convenient decision logistically, or even financially. It was going to take a lot of effort to convey cast and crew and equipment all the way from the southern part of Nigeria to that part, but we thought that the landscape absolutely justified it. And, here we are, and I still feel it justifies it. So, it's, we're just hoping to introduce that part of Nigeria to the world and say, hey, you see Africa in certain contexts on news reports and in film. We wanted to show that, look, there's beauty in Africa, that's not talked about, that's not often presented. We wanted to use the medium and platform of our film to show a different side of not only Africa, but particularly Nigeria.
No, it certainly is beautiful. I mean, you're watching the movie, the story is unfolding, and you're feeling the pain, but then you see this beautiful landscape. It's just like bite and blow. Yeah. So anyway, Desmond, what would it mean for you for this movie to be nominated and to win an Oscar?
I don't know whether I've deliberately just switched off my brain from
You better ask
content.
for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been I'm just waiting for that to happen, and they will say, okay, let's go through it. But obviously, I mean, cognitively, if one was to be nominated and win an Oscar, I mean, that would be. I mean, there are any words I would mention now would be inadequate in terms of such an eventuality coming to place. But obviously, be huge for me professionally. Be huge for Seun. I mean, this is our first project together. It's my second feature film for quite a number of the cast and crew. This is the biggest project they've ever worked on. They sacrificed body and soul to get this film made. We shot in Taraba State for 3 months, far longer than we expected to. Many of them had to sacrifice other jobs to remain on set to complete the film. So even just having the selection of the film to represent Nigeria is a huge reward, for what they went through. Should we go further and be shortlisted? Should we go further and be nominated? Should we go even further and win it? Then, I think, we've been, seventh heaven or something. I don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's such a thrill, a beautiful movie. So I know everybody will be wanting to see this film. How can they see it? Who's going to take that question for me?
Yeah. Sure, you want to go for that?
Okay. So we're currently, looking to have the movie acquired for wide distribution. So that is at the point at which, hopefully we'll be able to get everybody to be able to see the movie. So we're hoping that everybody, prays along with us that a deal comes through on that front in relatively short order. And that's what we're focusing on, apart from also doing whatever we can to advance our chances at the Oscars. So certainly this year, but very soon as we have an acquisition deal, the movie will be out for public consumption.
Absolutely. I'm sure in the meantime, if they want more information about the film, Desmond, where can they go online to get information and updates?
Absolutely. We have the official website of the movie. That is Milkmaid Movie, all one word, milkmaidmovie.com. Has all the information there. Also has links to our social media handles on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So yeah, it's a catch-all, one-stop destination for everything you need to know about the Milkmaid.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really had a good time conversing with you. And thank you again as an African, as a female, for my gender, for you guys helping us give voice to these women, and for generations to come that things will change and that we will be the collective voice and the means to make things better for our sisters back home. Thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you at the Oscars. How about that?
Thank you, Pamela. Looking forward to the same, and thank you for doing this. Thank you for the platform. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, to echo Seun's words, thank you so much. Thank you for this, for the discourse, and for the opportunity for us to talk about the Milkmaid. Thank you so much, and well done for the work you're doing. Look forward to talking with you about this and other things in the future. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure and my honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam.
We've come to the end of our show. Thank you so very much for joining me today. I would love to hear what you think about our discussion. So please share your thoughts in our comment section or send me an email to publisher@immigrantmagazine.com. Now be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram @Anchang, and like us on Facebook, The Immigrant Magazine. See you next time on The Immigrant Magazine.